The Health Sciences Authority, or HSA, has a post-market surveillance program to monitor the quality, safety, and efficacy of therapeutic products in Singapore. One component of this program is the management of product defects. As a product registrant, manufacturer, importer, or a supplier of a therapeutic product, you are required to do the following: to report product defects related to your therapeutic product to HSA, or to notify us if you are recalling any product before initiating the recall process. This video aims to provide you with information regarding the requirements and the processes for product defect reporting and product recalls. Product defects can arise during the manufacturing, the storage, and the handling of therapeutic products. It is important that you report these defects arising during these processes, especially if they can affect a product's safety, quality, and efficacy. This can help identify issues that may affect the users and ensure measures are taken to protect public health. The processes of product defect reporting and its management is as follows. Upon receiving the information regarding a product defect, an investigation should be conducted on the root cause of the defect and if local products are affected. If local products are affected, the extent of the defect, its impact to its users, should be assessed in order to determine if an immediate mitigation actions are needed. The defect should then be reported to HSA along with these proposed mitigation actions. Once the investigation into the defect is completed, preventive and corrective actions should be proposed and implemented to rectify and prevent the reoccurrence of the defect. Now we will go through in more details the various steps involved in this process. The first step is the investigation of the product defect. In this process, you should gather the relevant information such as the nature of the defect, the extent of the defect, the affected batches, the cause of the defect, and, if possible, obtain samples of the defective product. Second, you should conduct a risk and impact assessment considering the following factors: the potential consequences to patients, such as the treatment failure, reduced efficacy, or serious adverse reactions, including death, disability, and birth defects. Determine the affected patient population and identify whether vulnerable patients, such as children, the elderly, or the immunocompromised, are affected. Determine the type and nature of the product involved based on its indicated use, the route of administration, and the forensic classification of the product. Following the impact assessment, determine if the defect is classified as a critical or non-critical defect and report it to HSA based on the stipulated timelines. The defect may be classified as critical or non-critical according to its potential impact to public health and the risk posed to the intended user. A critical defect is one that may lead to death or serious injury, such as hospitalization, disability, or birth defects. A critical defect must be reported to HSA within 48 hours from the time your company is aware of it. Examples of critical defects include product mix-ups, such as wrong product packed in the wrong container or blister, microbial contamination of sterile injectable or ophthalmic products, physical contamination with glass or metal particles, wrong active ingredients used in the manufacturing process, incorrect information such as dosing, strength, or ingredients on the product label, which can then lead to serious consequences. Now, we will move on to non-critical defects. There are two types of non-critical defects: the reportable non-critical defects and the non-reportable non-critical defects. A reportable non-critical defect may affect the patient's health, affect the outcome of the medical treatment, or significantly affect the quality of the therapeutic product. You are required to report such defects to HSA within 15 calendar days. The second type of non-critical defect does not affect the patient's health or the outcome of the medical treatment, or the quality, safety, and efficacy of the therapeutic product. Such defects are not reportable to HSA. Examples of reportable non-critical defect include minor out-of-specification results that do not significantly affect the efficacy or safety of the product, incorrect information on the product label that does not affect the safety or the use of the product. Examples of non-reportable defects include isolated incidents of chipped tablets, dented shipping outer cartons, or missing tablet in bottles. However, the company is still required to investigate the root cause of these incidents, maintain a record of all complaints of products supplied to Singapore, and produce the records upon HSA's request. For product defects that occur outside of Singapore, you will need to assess if the defect has any potential impact on the safety, quality, or efficacy of the products or batches that are available locally. If the root cause of the defect has been identified to be a systemic manufacturing deficiency, the defect will then need to be reported to HSA. For example, an out-of-specification test result for impurities that have been detected for a batch of product that was supplied overseas. Investigations found that the root cause was due to a packaging defect. Although local batches do not have the out-of-specification results, the packaging defect can still affect all batches. Therefore, you should submit the product defect reporting form and propose a CAPA to rectify the packaging defect. In another example, product A and product B use the same active ingredient manufactured from the same manufacturing site. Product A is not registered in Singapore but is sold in other countries. However, product B is registered in Singapore. Product A was found to be contaminated due to an issue in the manufacturing of the active ingredient. As product B uses the same active ingredient as product A, it could be potentially affected by the same contamination. You should therefore submit a product defect report for product B. What about unregistered therapeutic products? The requirements for product defect reporting applies to both registered and unregistered therapeutic products. If you are importing an unregistered therapeutic product into Singapore, you should also report to HSA if there are any defects with this unregistered product. Now we will move on to the information you will need to provide when reporting a product defect. The information required in the reporting form includes the preliminary information on the defect, the investigation report, impact assessment, and any immediate risk mitigation measures that are being proposed. Do not delay in reporting even if some of the details are not known. The additional information may be provided to us at a later date. HSA will assess whether the proposed mitigation measures are appropriate or if additional measures are needed. These measures may include a product recall, the suspension of sales or a product quarantine, or communications to healthcare professionals or to the general public. Following the submission of a product defect report, you must ensure an investigation is conducted to identify the root cause of the defect. Preventive and corrective actions, or CAPA, should be proposed to rectify and prevent future recurrences. The full investigation and the CAPA report should then be submitted to HSA. The types of CAPA may include the redressing of the product, changing of the specifications, or the manufacturing processes. HSA will then assess if the proposed CAPA is adequate. Where implementation of a CAPA requires a submission of a minor variation application, or MIV, the timelines of submission of an MIV is to be provided. Besides reporting defects to HSA, companies are also responsible for maintaining the records of product defects. Companies must maintain the records of every defect for at least 2 years after the expiry date of the therapeutic product and produce these records for inspection when required. The records must contain the following information: the proprietary name of the therapeutic product, the nature of the defect, the date on which the manufacturer, the importer, or the registrant was first aware of the defect, and the lot number, the batch, or the serial number of the affected therapeutic product. Now we will move on to product recalls. A recall may be initiated if the defect poses a risk to the public. All recalls need to follow HSA's recall classification and must be reported to us based on the required timelines. The recall may be classified either as a Class 1 or a Class 2, depending on the potential hazard of the defect. A Class 1 recall must be conducted for critical defects that pose serious injuries or consequences to patients. A Class 2 recall can be conducted for non-critical defects. Next, you will need to determine the level of the recall. This will be dependent on the potential risks of the affected product and the extent of the distribution, and whether other mitigation measures can be taken to address the defect. The three levels of the recalls are consumer level recall, the retail level recall, and a wholesale level recall. Although you do not need to seek HSA's approval for initiating a product recall, HSA will still need to be notified before the start of the recall process and the reasons for the recall. If assessed to be necessary, HSA may raise the class or level of the product recall. HSA may also require you to do the following: investigate the cause leading to the recall, report on your findings, take other measures deemed necessary. This may include an advisory communication to healthcare professionals or to the public. Now we will go through the timelines for the recall process. For both Class 1 and Class 2 recalls, HSA will need to be notified within 24 hours prior to the start of the intended recall. You may notify your purchasers regarding the recall via a Dear Purchaser letter within 1 day for Class 1 recall or 3 days for a Class 2 recall. The notification should provide instructions to your purchasers, including the immediate cease in sale and supply of the defective product. The recall process is recommended to be completed within 1 week for a Class 1 or 3 weeks for a Class 2 recall. Upon completion of the recall exercise, please submit to HSA the product recall completion form. If the recall products are to be destroyed, HSA's approval is not needed, but a certificate of destruction should be submitted to HSA within 3 months from the completion of the recall. However, HSA's approval is needed for other actions, such as the reintroduction of the recall products back into the local market. Let's see where you can find the reporting forms for product defects and product recalls. The forms are available on the HSA website at the following link. The online forms include a drop-down list, interactive fields to facilitate the form filling process. Submission of the form is made easy with a single click at the end of the form. The form allows for an attachment of files, but there is a limitation in file size. Additional documents may be then emailed to the Vigilance and Compliance branch at the following email. We hope this video has provided you with the relevant information on product defect and product recall reporting and management. You play an important role in reporting product defects to HSA so that we can work together to mitigate the potential risks to the patients and take the necessary actions to safeguard public health. Let us work together to ensure good, quality, and safe health products in Singapore.